So there are four main topics that I'm planning to cover for you today. The first would be structuring workflows for operations, administrative work, or marketing within our ClickUp hierarchy. The hierarchy is at the core of our platform, and it's what enables you to manage all of your work and have a proper place for each type of project. So that's going to be really key to getting started successfully with ClickUp. Next, I'll give you an example of how you could manage something like an event schedule for extracurricular activities or school fundraisers using some of our ready-made folder templates, which are really great if you're new to ClickUp and looking for some examples of how to get started. I'll also give you some examples of how you can communicate effectively with colleagues as you work on various projects. And finally, we'll end by discussing how to use our dashboard reporting area to create simple, very clear reports on various workflows and projects. So I'm going to start at the very beginning and go over a little bit of information about how the ClickUp hierarchy is structured. So for those of you who are brand new to ClickUp, the hierarchy is what enables you to break up work by either department or team or initiative so that each team has a proper place to do their work. But there's also opportunities to reduce information silos. So you can see at a high level what everyone is doing across the workspace. So the first step when you create a ClickUp account is you'll either create your own workspace or join an existing workspace that maybe another one of your colleagues has already created. And that workspace will be represented by a little colorful avatar in the lower left corner of the screen. So just think of this as almost like your office building or just the university where you might be working at. It's the container for everything that you will be working on in ClickUp. Next, you will create spaces to break up your workspace into perhaps departments or teams. So I'll give you a few examples today of various spaces that I've created for some higher education use cases. Spaces in turn are broken up into folders which contain lists. So think of folders as the containers for large buckets of work or large projects within a space, and lists acting as the tabs that break up a folder into smaller components. And then finally, in the middle of our screen, we have our tasks here, which always live inside of lists. And this is where you'll actually be spending the majority of your time in ClickUp. So I'll open up a task a little bit later and we'll go into some of its various features, but this is where you'll be able to communicate with your teammates as you're working on action items. You will also have things like custom fields to keep track of, for example, budgetary information for a fundraiser or locations with a drop-down field. So custom fields are incredibly useful when you're trying to categorize tasks by type or just keep track of special details. All right, so as I mentioned, if you ever want to create a new space from scratch, you'll see the option to do that in the left sidebar. But I wanted to walk you through a few ready-made examples that I've created up front. So let's say you're in charge of donor outreach. This is an example of a setup that you could implement for that type of workflow where I have one space to manage all of my current donors and prospective donors. And I have a folder for donor recognition first with the different forms of recognition that we extend to our donors as lists. And then inside of the list, we have a task for each of our donors that is going to be recognized with either a plaque or a brick. Each task moves through statuses in ClickUp. So statuses are how you indicate to your teammates if a task is to do, in progress, or complete, and anything in between. So I've created these statuses for my donors and prospects space so that as I'm working on a task, I can move the task between different statuses like so. I've also included a label custom field here to keep track of the relevant university partner for each donor. So if you wanted a way to kind of label the connection that a certain donor has to the school, you could actually use the labels to indicate that here. And really cool thing about ClickUp is you even have the ability to group a view by that custom field. So if I wanted to have a view just zooming in on the different partners that each of my the schools within the university has, I could group by a custom field and see it broken up and just view the tasks in a slightly different way. Another example would be a donor outreach folder with just a simple list for prospective and current donors. And you'll notice I am using the due date field here to indicate when I need to commit to completing that outreach to the donor. A best practice in ClickUp if you're just getting started is to always have a due date on every task as well as an assignee, just so that no task will ever be forgotten. There will always be someone that's accountable for getting it done within a certain period of time. So as the assignee, Carvania here would get a notification on April 21st if the task was yet to be completed that it was going to be overdue, so she could attend to that. Let's open up one of the tasks in here. Let's say our current donors task here. And I wanted to show you another feature that you could use inside of the task, which is to make it recur. So this is one of our current donors, and let's say that I want to set up an easy reminder for myself as the assignee to reach out to this family every year, just to check in and pass on some opportunities to donate to the school. So what I can do here is set the due date for when I want that first outreach to occur. And when you click into the due date area, you'll see the option to set recurring. So in here, I can choose on which schedule I want this task to recur. It could be daily, weekly. I'll choose the yearly option, but you could even customize it to make it a unique recurring schedule. I can either create a new task on each recurrence so that a copy of this task will be generated upon each recurrence, or I can uncheck this and now all of my recurrences will take place in this same task window. So I'm going to keep it like this to have my setup be very simple so that all of my recurrences take place in this same task window. So once I save that, let's say I reach out to the donor, I make contact, I can set this task as complete. And you'll see the task has now refreshed. It was put back in to-do status and the due date is now for May 31st of 2022. So I don't even have to think about creating a new task for the next year. ClickUp will do it for me automatically with that recurring task feature. Another great way that you could communicate with donors or really anyone outside of ClickUp is with our email in ClickUp feature. So really briefly, I'm going to leave this task and show you how this feature works by going into the integrations settings area. So with email in ClickUp, you can send an email to anyone directly from a ClickUp task, and any replies to that email will also be routed back to the task so that you can respond back and forth. The person receiving the emails will have no idea that you're sending them from ClickUp. It will be just a normal email chain on their end, but it really reduces the amount of context switching that you have to do if you do communicate in email fairly frequently. You can all do it. You can do it all directly from ClickUp. So just keep in mind, you need admin capabilities to access this area and set up email in ClickUp, but From there, you could link your work email address and also add some customization in terms of who can send from this address, what you want the send email as name to be. You can also add a customized signature like I've done here, either with rich text or HTML, and it will look really nicely. I'll show you what that looks like when I'm actually sending an email from ClickUp shortly. Another really useful feature that I'd recommend with this is templates. So if you have something like a commonly used donor outreach message or scheduling email that you send out on a recurring basis, you can add that as a template and just plug that into an email that you're sending from ClickUp. So it's sent every time with the same subject line and email content. So let's say I've set that feature up and I actually want to reach out to my donor family via email. I can click into the comment thread here, and rather than submitting a comment in the task, I would just click the send email button. So my sender address is already in the from section, and let's say I'm going to send this to sophia@clickup.com. That's my donor's email address. And I can always write out an email from scratch here. But the other option is I can load in an email template. So maybe I have that donor outreach template. It has the subject line in there, and then I can add in my signature at the bottom. And I can go ahead and send that off. And then when the recipient gets the email, they'll be able to respond to that, and it will come in actually in the thread of this same ClickUp comment, and I can respond to it directly from the same thread. So it's a really great way to not be switching manually between your email inbox and ClickUp. Now, the comment thread is a really great place to actually communicate with your internal team members and colleagues that might be working in ClickUp. So I always recommend mentioning a teammate to trigger a notification that they need to attend to the task. You'll also notice that I can add attachments into this comment so that if I had a relevant file or something I wanted them to send, I could include that in my comment. Tom could then, add a reaction to my comment to indicate that he's seen it. He can reply to me in the thread here, and we can have a condensed conversation within the task comment thread here. For very important comments that we don't want to slip through the cracks in the midst of a long thread, I also recommend assigning the comment. So if I assign this to Tom, he will always see this as a line item on the left side of the task. So he can click to jump right to that comment at any point. And also, when he's looking at his assigned tasks at a high level in ClickUp, he'll be able to visualize any assigned comments that he has, so he can come in and resolve this when he's actually taken action on the comment. So it's a great way to make sure that no comment is ever forgotten in the midst of a long task comment thread here. This is a little bit more advanced, but I showed you how to manually send an email from a ClickUp task. You can also automate this in ClickUp. So we have an automation feature which will allow you to set triggers, something that needs to happen to prompt an action. So if you're interested in automations, I would definitely encourage you to check out the email and ClickUp automation integrations. So you can do things like, for example, maybe when the due date arrives for my donor outreach tasks, I would like to send an email to a certain address that I've collected in a custom field, for example. And then I can plug in that template for donor outreach so that on the due date, I don't even have to go in there and manually send the email. ClickUp would do it for me via this automation rule. So that one's a little bit more advanced, but it's definitely something I'd recommend playing around with if you'd like to take out that manual step of actually sending an email from ClickUp. Let's chat a little bit about a marketing and communications use case. So first off, I did want to mention that lists can live outside of a folder. So if you want to keep things really, really simple and you actually don't find that you need the folder level, you can always create standalone lists like I've done here. So this is just a simple list for newsletters. And I have a task here for each of the different seasonal newsletters that my school is going to be putting out. Another use case might be having a simple folder for all of your marketing materials and using lists for different types of brochures or other marketing assets that you're sending out to different people in your organization. Finally, I wanted to point out some information about managing events. And in this space, I've added in one of our ready-made ClickUp templates. So I wanted to show you how to navigate to our community template center if you ever want to check out some of our ready-made templates for various use cases. So once you've created your space, in your left sidebar, you can click on the plus sign next to the space and go to Template Center, and then Browse Templates. And in the Community Template Center, this is where you'll see all of the various use case templates that ClickUp has made for its users, or in some cases, these are templates that other ClickUp users have published and they've been vetted to put in our template center. But what I did to find the events one is simply search for the event management use case. And the one that I'll be showing for you here is called event planning. So you could simply click on that from the template center and then use the template to add that into your workspace and play around with it. So I've renamed the folder template to be called school events, and then the lists are things like the actual activities and events, managing facilities, pre-event details, and then billing details to keep track of any invoice information that we need. And we have a variety of different custom fields here as well. So progress percentage is a great one if you use our subtask feature, because as you complete each subtask, this will indicate the overall progress of the parent task. We also have 2 money custom fields here for amount spent as well as budget. And then this is a formula field. So this is subtracting the expenditures from the actual budget here. So it's a really great way to just keep track of the budget with minimal effort in a list view like so. And this is a colorful drop-down field we're using to classify the location of the different events we're working on. So if you use this template, you could actually come in here and edit the fields to rename these to be more relevant locations for the events that you're managing. In addition to the custom fields in this template, we also have a variety of different views that are set up for the template. So these are what we call task views, which are simply different ways of viewing your tasks. And these are all about giving you flexibility in the way that you like to work. So we've been in list view thus far, and this is definitely the most popular view, most used, because it really makes it easy to see all of the most important task information in these clean vertical columns. However, another view that's really helpful in this template would be the calendar view. So since all of my events are, obviously are really influenced around the start and due date, I can come into the calendar view to see all of the tasks that have been scheduled out. And I can also see different time vantage points. So we're in the month viewed by default, but if you wanted to just highlight, for example, a week on the calendar, you can change up your time vantage point here. In the right sidebar, you'll also see any unscheduled tasks that you have. So as you're looking to schedule out events, you're scrolling through the various months, you can actually drag and drop a task onto the calendar in order to schedule it out. Keep in mind that we also have the option to sync ClickUp tasks to an external calendar. So if you use Google Calendar or Outlook and you want to see your ClickUp tasks that have dates on them from that external calendar, you can always do that in your settings area so that you're not switching back and forth so much between your external calendar and ClickUp. Now, we talked a little bit ago about having a conversation with your teammates in the ClickUp task comment thread. What if you want to have a higher level conversation about a whole group of tasks or projects? Well, that would be a great time to use our chat view. So our chat view is what we call a page view. It just means it's a way to keep track of high level project resources. So for example, this chat view has been created for the school events folder. So I can come into this chat view and have a higher conversation about everything going on related to school events. And I can do everything in here that I did within the task comment thread. So I can tag people in and @mention them. There's a really cool feature called mentioning tasks as well. So if I hit @2 times on my keyboard, maybe there's a specific event task that I want to link my team to, I can click on that task from the @mentioning menu. And this will allow my colleague Tom then to actually click and open up the task or copy a link to it without needing to go searching for it in ClickUp. Finally, I wanted to mention our doc view. The doc view is a really great way to create anything from standard operating procedures to an event plan to a communications brief. They're really robust, and it's a great way to keep your documentation that might be in 3 or 4 different tools all inside of ClickUp. So you'll notice that inside of my doc, I can create additional pages in the left sidebar. And these can also be nested inside of one another. So I can expand and collapse these different sections to keep my doc nice and organized. One of my favorite features in ClickUp is the / command. And this is where I can add rich editing inside of a ClickUp doc. So if you hit the / key on your keyboard, you can actually create things like headers, you can also do things like create a table of contents if you have a very long doc. You can even embed something like a Google Sheet or a YouTube video. Anything that is helpful to have as a resource inside of the ClickUp doc can be added here. Additionally, keep in mind that docs can be shared with people outside of ClickUp. So if you came up with a doc on, a public facing doc you wanted to embed on your website or something, you can copy a public link to the doc so that anyone can see it, not just the other users inside of ClickUp. This is just a more general tip, but just one thing to be aware of. No matter what you're doing in ClickUp, just keep in mind that it's always really easy to see only what you have to get done. So by default, we're seeing tasks that are assigned to everyone. But if you click on me mode at any point, you'll instantly zoom in on only what is assigned to you. So it's a really useful way to just see what you have to get done versus what everyone else is doing. On the flip side, if I click on that everyone button, this will open up a sidebar so I can see anyone else that has assigned tasks. And I can actually click on them to quickly filter by assignee and see what only those people are getting done. One other way that I wanted to mention in terms of communicating with teammates and holding one another accountable for getting project work done is our reminders feature. Reminders, in contrast to tasks, are much more straightforward, much simpler rather. So there's no complex status workflow for a reminder. There's no conversation thread. They're just really simple ways that you can remind yourself or someone else to get something done. So there are two ways you can create reminders in ClickUp. The first is by clicking on the little rainbow square in the lower right corner of the screen and then going to reminder. The other way is just to hit R on your keyboard. So maybe my reminder here would be to set up scheduling appointment with the dean. When I create a reminder, I can add an attachment. So if I needed to, convey an attachment or an invoice or something, I could attach that here. And I can also set a due date for when the reminder should be due. Now the reminder will be delegated to me by default, but I could also give it to someone else if I wanted them to complete the reminder. And you can also opt in for a notification. If you want to get a web browser pop up when the reminder is due, you can turn that on here. So once I create that reminder, it will appear under my home section in the left sidebar. Home is your place to work. So you're only going to see things here that are assigned to you or that you delegated to someone else. So if I had delegated that reminder to another person, it would appear in this section. And here I can see any reminders that have or haven't been completed by others. So if this reminder were checked off, it would disappear from the view. I would know that it was done. But since that reminder we just made was designated for myself, it would be shown in the to-do section of the My Work area. So in My Work, I can see things assigned to me that are due today, that are overdue, and that are due in the future. So there's that reminder that we just created here. And when I've completed that, I can just check it off so it will disappear from view. Lastly, you can see your unscheduled section down here. So think of this as your backlog. These are all the things that you have to get done, but that you haven't yet put on your agenda. And on the right side here, you'll see your calendar. So as you're considering when you have some time to do some work, you can just drag and drop this onto the calendar to put some time on your agenda to do the task. So home is just a really great place to get started and see only what you have to get done if you have yet to use ClickUp. All right, before we get into your questions, I just want to touch quickly on our dashboard reporting area. So your dashboard area is located in the left sidebar. You'll see it under the dashboard section. And this is a place to get a high-level overview of project progress without needing to delve into individual tasks in a lot of detail. So it's great for anyone that just wants to get a quick feel for what's done, what's overdue, what's people's capacity looking like. And dashboards can be created for example, different departments within a university. You could have a personal dashboard to keep track of your own work. In this case, I just have one general simple dashboard to show you a few of our most popular widgets. So widgets are what you add to a dashboard to see your task data in different ways. And a few of the widgets I have set up here would be, first of all, our task list widget. So the task list widget is just creating a list view using tasks from any location in ClickUp. So you'll notice that widgets can be filtered by location. So rather than seeing everything from your workspace, you can just pick and choose, select spaces, folders, or lists to pull into your results. Now, in this case, I wanted a list view to highlight my over budget events in my events planning location. And I've added a filter here because I have a drop-down custom field for budget status. So I only wanted to see the tasks that have that over budget status included. And now it's really easy for me to see, I can see that formula field to see how much over our budget are we for each task. And I can also open up the task directly from this widget. And I can have a conversation with the assignee to say, hey, can you give me an update as to why we're so over budget here, and have a discussion in the task. This is a calculation widget to add up, all of the revenue that we've made for events, for example. So again, you could just have filtering for this type of widget. I filter to only see tasks that have due date of this year, to see only event tasks for 2021. But the calculation widget will allow you to exhibit various functions of numeric fields. So you could just pick a number field or a money custom field that you wanted to add up here to get a high level calculation of all of the values in those task fields. We have a lot of custom widgets that you can choose from. And one of them is the bar chart. So the bar chart here, I've just used it to keep track of any open donor outreach tasks we have that we still need to reach out to. So this one, I just have assignees on my x-axis with number of tasks on the y-axis. And I could also add a filter for something like status if I wanted to show, only things that are open, or exclude things that are done or closed. But I can just quickly see how much each of my teammates has on their plate in terms of the number of donors they're reaching out to. And again, I definitely encourage you to check out the custom widgets section if you haven't already. The one that I added in was the bar chart, but you could exhibit the same type of information in a pie chart or a battery chart, really whatever is best for the way you like to see your work. Finally, we have a chat widget here. So this is another great place to actually have a conversation with other people in a dashboard. So as long as you share the dashboard with other people, they will, they do need to be either guests or members in your ClickUp workspace, but they will then be able to come in here and have a conversation with you inside of the dashboard area. So you don't even have to leave that or go into a task comment thread to have a conversation. Hopefully this gives you a few ideas of how to start out with reporting for higher education use cases. But with the remainder of our time today, I'd like to see if there are any questions to be answered in the Zoom Q&A tab. So I'll just take a look at those in just a moment. All right, I see a question from Tiago. I would like to be able to create a recurring task for each class I have in a course, and be able to immediately edit the description of any of these tasks to include, for example, the subjects of this specific class. Yeah, so let's walk through that as an example here. So I'm just going to create a new task in here that we can play around with. So the best way, if you want to be able to edit the description and have a unique copy of for each course, would definitely be to create a new task upon each recurrence. Now, in terms of keeping track of the subjects or something like that, there's a couple ways I could think to do that. A simple way would be to use the description. So it could be, you could use those rich editing options to have, you know, subject areas, resources needed, whatever information you want upon each recurring task, you could just put that into the description here. Or you could also add in custom fields for this. So if you wanted to create a custom field, for example, maybe a drop-down field for subject, then upon each recurrence, you would be able to fill in that custom field. When it reopens, it would just be in the menu here. But for the actual settings of the recurring task for, let's say you want it to recur like every 3 months or something. I don't know if it would be like a quarterly class or something, but you could do a custom schedule and maybe it would be every 3 months on the first. And then by creating a new task, you'll create a duplicate task window upon each recurrence that is editable. So if I save this and I check this off, the next task has been opened up here and it's due in July. And you can see I can then edit those description areas. I could add something in the custom fields here for the new subject. So upon each recurrence, you would have a new task window that you could edit. Let's see. Katie asks, minor question. On the home screen, I sometimes use the calendar view to plan out my day by dragging and dropping tasks. For recurring tasks that then ties the time I chose for today to that task each time it repeats. I've managed it by going in at the next recurrence to update or eliminate the time, but I'm wondering whether that extra step is somehow avoidable. Any suggestions? So when you're dragging the recurring task onto the calendar, you are telling ClickUp that you want the recurring task's time to be changed to match the time you're inputting in the calendar. So it is expected behavior that would adjust the time in the recurring task. I can't, to be honest, think of a way to avoid that extra step of editing the time upon the repeat, because that's going to be carried over in the future recurrences. So unfortunately, sorry, I can't really think of a way around that one. Monica, you ask, when you don't need the custom fields in all the tasks and you don't want them to show, is the only option to have them hidden? So you could definitely click on a column header to delete the field entirely. And you'll see these options when you try to delete the field. You can either delete it just from the particular location you're in. In this case, this is a custom field tied to my school events folder. Or if it's a field that exists in multiple locations, you can permanently delete it from everywhere by clicking here. But the other option would be I can just click on the column header to hide it from my list view, which is just going to conceal it, but it's still going to be present in the folder. Shane, you ask, how would I effectively use ClickUp for HE student recruitment? Sorry, I'm not quite sure what HE stands for. I don't know if any of our support folks have insight into that or if you'd like to clarify, Shane, but um, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying. Higher education. Yeah, so there are a few templates that I think could be useful there. We actually do have, I think it would be useful to maybe check out some of our templates that have a form view in them. So this one is one of our human resources folder templates, but you could consider trying something like a hiring candidates folder template. So if you add that in, let's change the folder name to student recruitment. And the template itself is designed around hiring for, professional roles. However, I do think it has some good resources to check out for student recruitment use cases. Let's just give it a second to load in the template. So for example, in here I have a list for each of the different departments we would be hiring for, but you could also do, rename this for if you're recruiting for different schools within the university or, athletic teams. I'm not sure in what regard you'd be recruiting for, but that's pretty flexible to change. And this template also includes a ClickUp form view. So the form view is a really great way to streamline any sort of information intake process and create tasks in ClickUp from the information that you collect. So this form's pretty great just for a simple application to use in the recruitment process. And then any task, any submission that comes in here would come in as a task in ClickUp. I'll just show you as an example what it would look like. I'll make this field optional so I don't have to attach something. And then it's going to come in here as a new task. So you can actually click in here to take action on it. You'd see all of their contact information in the custom fields. You'll also see that this template includes things like ratings. So you can rank the various candidates throughout the recruitment process. You can have a drop down for their, relevant experience in the field you're recruiting for. And then you can use the email and ClickUp fields to feature to communicate with them. So this might be an interesting template to start out with for that use case. All right, just give it another minute or so in case there are any other questions that haven't yet been answered by our support team. Monica, you ask, when you have a webinar, you always send a reminder. Is this automated through ClickUp? So Zoom will, I believe, send you an automated reminder that the webinar is about to start because we do use Zoom to organize our webinars, but we also use a tool called Pendo to prompt a pop-up in the ClickUp workspace for people to register. So those are the tools we use to prompt reminders to register or attend the webinar. Naria, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, you ask, what would be the best template for tracking research projects? Be curious if any of the support folks have thoughts on that one. Let's give it a shot and see. The education-based ones might be good to take a look at. For example, something like the student template types or class assignments. This is a pretty basic one. But you might want to check out the assignments template or anything else in the education use case for those types of projects. I wanted to mention as well, we have a great help resource center, which you can always access in your ClickUp workspace by clicking on the question mark. This includes links to our onboarding guide, as well as our documentation center and our videos. We have a doc and video on pretty much every feature in ClickUp, including those ready-made folder templates if you wanted to learn more about those. You can also check out our webinar page where we will be posting the recording of this session in about a day. And then you can connect with our support team here as well if you have a question as you can continue to play around with ClickUp. So I'd highly recommend checking out the Resource Center as well. All right, well, that's about all the time we have for today, but I want to thank you all again so much for taking the time to attend the webinar, and hopefully it gave you some good ideas about how to get started with organizing ClickUp for your use case. But again, we have another webinar coming up every week, so we do hope to see you at a future session. But in the meantime, thanks again and have a great rest of your day.